Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
That is right, my friends. Conservative, not bitter indeed. Here we are on a Friday. I appreciate you tuning in. Lots of things you could be doing. Nothing as beneficial and as entertaining as this, but I appreciate you tuning in all sincerity and joining us here today, my friends. Thank you for that. We will be, let's see, I've got a lot in the stack of stuff today. I've got Bernie Sanders out there. If you've not seen this, this is beautiful. Bernie Sanders defending his use of private jets, which I've got no problems with, by the way. Well, I've got problems with his hypocrisy, where he has excuses in his mind to use private jets, but fighting against the oligarchy. The oligarchy, of course, is the rule by the few, the wealthy, the elite, the powerful. Bernie Sanders out there jetting around and defending it. I got that in the news that I want to get to. I've got Biden on with the ladies of The View. That's a match made in heaven, if you ask me. That's something right there that, I mean, these are two of the things that I get the most entertainment talking about. Joseph Robinette bribery and the ladies of The View. I've got some clips of that conversation. We've got Trump's new trade deal with Britain. We've got Secretary Lutnick praising Trump and his ability to make deals. We got a lot of stuff. Kash Patel was before the Senate this week. He was also before the House of Representatives. There's a lot to get to, my friends. We'll do this to the best of our ability over the course of our 2-hour program in due course, my friends. So hang in there. We will get to those things as quickly as we can. You can always check these things out, by the way, on the articles and the things that we're prepared to discuss anyway on our website, toddhuffshow.com. Just check out the stack of stuff. Before I do that, my friends, I want to talk to you if you are in sales. Friends, you don't have to go it alone. Sales is tough. I know, listen, sales is not for the faint of heart. Sales is tough. It can be draining. You have to deal with rejection, but you don't have to do it alone. Matt Easton at Easton University, they give you a training system, but it's more than just a system. They give you a system that provides accountability and insight and structure. Matt Easton, by the way, is one of the best I've seen do this. The sales training and coaching is phenomenal. And the level of accountability where you're tuning in, you're jumping on a couple of coaching calls each week with Matt and other students, getting questions answered, refining your skills, and having that level of accountability. That's what sets Matt apart. And if you've been spinning your wheels or just feeling stuck, this is your chance to have a breakthrough, my friends. ToddHuffShow.com/Easton, EASTON. That's where you can go to find out more information about Matt's training system at Easton University. And if you sign up to be a student there for yourself or for your team, you can get a one-on-one call with Matt where he's going to jump on personally with you, go over your situation, your challenges, and your goals so that you can hit the ground running with the training program. ToddHuffShow.com/Easton. Again, ToddHuffShow.com/Easton. Invest in yourself and see how far you can go, my friends. You are certainly worth it, and you can learn the skills to be an incredibly productive salesperson. Let's start here with Bernie Sanders. I love this, by the way. The amount of hypocrisy here is rich. Bernie Sanders, this was a couple of days ago. I saw this a couple of days ago, but I didn't play it until now. I just told someone this the other day. There are so many things. There are so many things to discuss, talk about, whatever, here in this world that we live in. And it is incredibly challenging. You know, when I started this, it's almost been 10 years ago. When I started this nearly 10 years ago, which it just hits me as I say that. I mean, this is a decade of my life that I've devoted to this. I believe in this, by the way. I believe in the ideas. I believe in what we're doing. I love communicating with, connecting with. I love hearing from people in this audience. I have a profound amount of respect for you all. You're the ones that make this country work. You're the ones that are going to help save this country from the direction it has been trending over the course of the past 50 plus years, or my entire life, most of your entire lives, maybe all of our entire lives. But this, when I started, I remember thinking, how am I going to talk about every day, day in and day out? And that was only for an hour. That was one of my fears. I'll be honest with you. I don't want to say fear, but it was a concern. What do I do? What do I do if it's not, if there's a slow news day? Well, turns out those don't exist right now. There's always something to talk about. And there's times that I wouldn't even have had time to go back and talk about this. I think this is a very, what I want to say, Rush used to say teachable moments, but I think this is a very, I guess you would say teachable moment. It's an eye-opener. It's an eye-opener into some things that should be fundamentally obvious to people. And that's why I want to play this, because this helps us understand the mindset of the left. This is Bernie Sanders. He is a leftist. He's a radical leftist. He's a socialist. He tells us proudly. Now, he'll tell us he's a democratic socialist, which is interesting to me. A Democrat, they think if they throw the word democratic in front of it, it means, well, if half of the people out there, if a majority of the people say that we can take someone's personal wealth, possessions, money, then I guess it's justified. This, by the way, flies in the face of what a true constitutional republic is, because a constitutional republic says, hey, here are certain unalienable rights that we all have, and no matter what the majority says, you can't lose these. They can't take these away from you. These don't come to you by the government. These come to you. These are given to you by Almighty God himself. We can't take them away because we, the government, didn't give them to you. That's one of the differences, again, for those who don't like people parsing hairs or, well, talking about the true differences between democracy and a republic. This is one of the reasons why it's important. But Bernie Sanders jumps on with special report with Bret Baier. He's sitting there at the desk with Bret Baier. And to Bret's credit here, you know, by the way, Bret went to school here in Indiana, college, DePaul University. A lot of folks in media have gone through DePaul University. I looked at going to DePaul University, did not go there, but it's a good school, and there's some folks that have gone through there, Bret Baier being one of them. So anyway, Bret Baier sits down with Bernie Sanders, and he asks him about this. So you got Bernie Sanders and AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, out there jetting around the country. They've apparently spent, according to what Bret Baier says here, what he's found in his research, his team there have found that Bernie Sanders, AOC, the Fighting Oligarchy movement, the tour there, has spent $221,000 on private jet travel during these tours around the country. So he asks Bernie about this. And Bernie has this to say.
You know, Alyssa Slotkin, senator from Michigan, she said you shouldn't be using oligarch. It's over people's head. You've gotten criticized from other people. Free Beacon says Bernie Sanders spent $221,000 on private jets fighting the oligarchy tour paid for by friends of Bernie Sanders. That you've spent millions of dollars in campaign funds on private jet travel over the years. How do you push back on both of those things?
When's the last time you saw Donald Trump during a campaign mode at National Airport?
No. It doesn't. But he's also not fighting the oligarchy.
No. You run a campaign and you do 3 or 4 or 5 rallies in a week. The only way you can get around to talk to 30,000 people. Think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line at United, waiting, 30,000 people are waiting. That's the only way you can get around. No apologies for that. That's what campaign travel is about. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it in the future.
And you think that this is hitting a mark? You think it's scratching the itch that voters want to hear from?
I think at a time when the people on top are doing phenomenally well, when seniors, working class people are struggling, people want to hear action to stand up to the people who have the wealth and the power and create an economy that works for all of us, not just the people on top.
Well, Senator Sanders, I appreciate you coming on, talking about the issues, and we'll have you back.
Bernie, do you not see the blatant hypocrisy here? Now listen, I want to be abundantly clear. I don't have, if you want to fly private, if you can afford it, I know a lot of people would say, yeah, I'd love to fly private. If you want to do it, if you have the resources, the funds, if you've got a jet, if you're part of a group, if you pay for one of these private jet companies to jet you around the country, that's your business. That's your prerogative. I'm not going to be out there criticizing you for this. Listen, we are individual people. We all have our own set of realities and circumstances. First reality is not everybody can afford to fly private. Secondly, if you can afford to fly private, whether that means you own your own jet outright or a part owner in a jet, or you are paying a company to fly you around privately, that is your prerogative, your business. You are not the devil incarnate if you do that. See, this is the problem these leftists find themselves getting into, whether it's the people that are supposedly fighting the oligarchy here or people who are fighting climate change. They'll all jump on their private jets, which again, I have zero problem with. I have no problem. What I have a problem with, and what reasonable people have a problem with, is this hypocrisy. Now, the word hypocrite means to be one who pretends to be something that he's not. A hypocrite is a pretender. In fact, if you go back and look at the etymology of the word, it can be traced back to this idea of actors in a play who would wear different masks. They would put on masks to play or hold up masks to play a certain part in a play. They were pretending to be something that they were not. Now, to be an actor is not a bad thing. It can be. It is in today's world. They're all radical leftists. They all become self-righteous and experts in everything. But there's nothing wrong with acting, but there's something wrong about pretending to be something you are not. In fact, if you go back, I've been doing this Bible study. I don't want to get too preachy. I was preachy the other day. I appreciate your patience with that. I felt like it was appropriate since we were talking about the new pope and how the left wants the pope to be more progressive and what that means and how that does not conform to biblical Christianity and so forth. So that's why we were talking about those things. By the way, they've selected a pope. I don't want to go down that path today. There's other stuff I want to get to. But if you go back and you look at Jesus, when he was here on earth, he really went after. He went after the folks who were hypocrites. And he did not mince words with these folks. He called them things like a brood of vipers. He called them a whitewashed tomb. What does that mean? It means it's this fancy, ornate, beautiful tomb or grave on the outside, very decorative, looked very very special, all that sort of stuff, very dignified and everything else. But on the inside, what's on the inside of those tombs? It's death. Death on the inside. That's what Jesus would call the leaders, the Jewish leaders at the time, the folks that were hypocrites on the Sanhedrin, people who were hypocrites, the scribes who were hypocrites, the Pharisees who were hypocrites, the folks who were highly legalistic and put a burden on the backs of the people. To me, when I say those words, it reminds me of some of the things I see happening today from our government. In fact, I would say that I hear echoes of this. Please don't read too much into that, but I hear echoes of this here when I hear Bernie's response, in the sense that there are people who are out there talking about a set of ideas that they don't adhere to, that they don't live up to. Bernie Sanders is out there jetting around, complaining about the rule of the few, complaining about the elite, complaining about the powerful becoming more powerful, the wealthy becoming wealthier, and he's out there jetting around. Again, I personally don't look at the world this way. I'm just pointing this out to say this is how morally bankrupt and just incredibly stupid his worldview is. And so he's behaving in ways that is consistent with the people he's out there demonizing. He's out there blaming. He is, by virtue of being a part of this small, wealthy, powerful elite group, is he not one of the oligarchs himself out there complaining about the oligarchy? By the way, ironically, this is what happens every single time some government, some state or nation tries to pursue Bernie's little socialist utopia. Every time it is tried, you actually have what you have is a form of oligarchy. You know, the Soviet communists, while they were communists, it in effect was also, it had oligarchy tendencies. Meaning, in other words, the people who were running the Communist Party, the people who were given, who were living high on the hog, were the folks that were in this distinct group. The powerful, the elite, the wealthy, through the Communist Party, running the country. The ones who were telling us, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. In reality, what they wanted was from each according to his ability, to us as we have want, the ruling class. That's what Bernie Sanders stands for. That's what his ideology, quote unquote, democratic socialism, is the kissing cousin of what they had in the Soviet Union, my friends. This is what happens. They rail against this, they protest against this, but they're actually ushering it in by taking away the choice and free will of people, the opportunities of individuals. Now, what I also find interesting about this is that every single person who flies private can also offer the same exact reasons as to why they are permitted, why it's acceptable for them to fly private. Now, a lot of folks who fly private don't even want you to know it. They don't want you to know it because they don't want to be put on some sort of a list that's targeting these, being accused of being part of the problem, the ultra elite, part of the oligarchy or whatever. They're not doing it to rub people's nose in it. But I do find myself, why do people care so much? Why do people feel so strongly about people who fly privately? It has to be jealousy. It has to be greed. I couldn't care less. Yes, there are times that I think, boy, that would be a super if I had a jet parked up here, we could hop on the jet and go do X, Y, and Z. Certainly that's an appealing thing to me. But I don't fault those who have that capability. They haven't taken it away from me. What is wrong with these people? The amount of jealousy and rage. They're the ones. They talk about the people who have these resources as being greedy. But friends, greed is the desire of the heart, the desire to want more. It's not wrong to try to be better, to try to improve your life. But we all know when we enter into that greedy mindset, and greed is not contingent upon greedy. Folks who have a lot are not the only ones who can be greedy. Certainly they can be greedy, but so can it can be true from people who don't have as much as those other folks. By the way, if you compare what all of us have, materially speaking, to those who have lived throughout the history of this world, or even those who live currently on the face of this planet who are not blessed with the opportunity to be American, we, my friends, all of us are in, there could be certain exceptions here, but it would be a very, very rare exception. We are all in the wealthy, We are all considered wealthy in comparison to those around the world. We are blessed and fortunate. And I don't tell you that to make you feel guilty. Not at all. I think you shouldn't feel the slightest bit guilty. I think you should feel overwhelmingly grateful for the opportunity. I think we should be mindful of it on our worst days when we feel like things aren't going our way. And there's days like that. I'm not minimizing that. We all go through tough times. We all lose loved ones. We all, relationships end, circumstances change, children grow up, people pass away, terrible stuff. There's divorce, there's bankruptcy, there's emotional trauma. There's all sorts of things that could happen that people are going through. And my heart goes out to people. We all have things that we've struggled with and things that have, that's another thing. A lot of times the things that are the hardest on us actually are things that in the long run, and I'm not speaking in every circumstance of abusive circumstances and that sort of thing, but a lot of times the thing that was the hardest on us are the things that in a weird way we're most grateful for. So I just, it depends upon the human heart. You're not greedy simply because you're wealthy, and you're not free from greed simply because you're not as wealthy as the wealthiest people in this country. Wealth has a lot more to do with the perspective, that we choose to have, the people in our lives, the relationships that we have, the opportunities we've been granted, the freedoms that we've been given. We are wealthy beyond measure in those areas. But every single person who flies private could say exactly what Bernie Sanders or whatever their version of a reason why they fly private if they felt like they had to give an account. Bernie Sanders says, look, I got lots of places to be. I got to speak to 30,000 people. I can't wait around at Reagan National Airport. Who do you think I am? Just a common person out here? But the reality is every single person who flies privately flies it for a specific reason. Maybe it's a business owner whose time is worth a significant amount of money, and it actually makes sense to do this. It saves people a ton of time. It lets them be more flexible, lets people do more things that need to be done, and there can absolutely be a justification for it. There's lots of justifications for it. Who's Bernie Sanders? I think he's the only one. This is the problem with government. I got to take a break here, but this is the problem with government. They think they should be the arbiters and deciders, decision makers on these matters. I'll talk more about that on the other side of the break. My friends, sit tight. Be back here in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. See, this is the problem with government. Government wants to, Bernie Sanders in particular, wants to set up some sort of a system that says, well, the left in general, but Bernie does too. Oligarchs are the problem. We need to take their wealth. We need to, stop climate change, reduce this sort of private air travel because you're putting too much carbon out there. Your carbon footprint's unacceptably high. The government's going to step in. But then the government's going to give exceptions, right? The government will give exceptions. Well, Bernie Sanders can fly privately. He can have a disproportionate carbon footprint because he's Bernie Sanders and he's got to get out there. He's got important things to do. Well, what about you? What about the rest of us? If you can afford it, if it's justifiable for you to fly privately, why is it Bernie Sanders and the bureaucrats' job to step in and do something about it? See, I don't think that it is. Actually, I know that it isn't. I absolutely know that it's none of their business, but yet that's what they do. It reminds me back in the days of COVID. Now, listen, I understand that there are things that are critically important to society. Not everything is equal when you're looking at it from a government perspective. So, for example, I'm a big fan of the national parks. When we travel, we go to national parks. I think the national parks are amazing, incredible. Had some really cool experiences there. You may have too. But I am under no illusion, my friends, that if things got really tough here in this country and the government had to choose between funding the military or keeping the national parks open, if that is the choice, and I'm not saying that there's no other solution, but not everything's equal. Obviously, national defense is more important than the national park system, which I love, by the way. America is a beautiful place, an absolutely fantastic place. Natural beauty, all this stuff. The parks are amazing. I think it's more important, for example, to have a secure border than to have a gift shop on the top of Rocky Mountain National Park. I just saw an email of a picture of the gift shop at Estes National Park, or Rocky Mountain National Park, I should say. No problem with it being there. It's an awesome park. It's been a long time since I've been there, but that's an amazing, beautiful, wonderful place. These things are not the same. They're not the same. So I understand that. But here's the thing. Here is the thing that I also understand. I understand when COVID came along, the government wanted to say, well, if you're an essential business, you can be open. Now, I understand, I just told you, I understand the difference between national defense, securing our borders, protecting us from people who are intending to cause us harm. I understand the difference between that and an afternoon at the national parks. Those are not the same thing. But I will say this too. If it is your livelihood, and if it is your way to provide for your family, if it's your way to take care of the needs of your family, providing food, shelter, clothing, education, love, comfort, a little bit of entertainment, whatever, vacations, if it's how you do it, then it's critically important. It is absolutely necessary. And the government doesn't need to butt in and tell us who's got more important this or that in order for our society, because, my friends, that's how people provide for their families. That's how they've chosen to meet those provisional needs for the family or for themselves individually, whatever the case. But the bottom line here is that the government starts stepping in because they want to. They just can't help themselves. They start saying, well, you can't do it for this, you can't do it for that, but if you meet this exception, if you're part of the in crowd, now suddenly, like Bernie Sanders, it's okay to jet around the country. These folks cannot keep their fingers out of your business. I find it beyond ironic that Bernie Sanders is giving a list of excuses that any person could give as to why they want to fly private, why they need to fly private. And the irony here is that Bernie doesn't even see it. He doesn't even see it. Most statists don't see it. They don't see it because they see themselves as the answer. They see the rest of us as the problem. They think that they hold the solution. They think the rest of us are the ones that are wreaking havoc. We're the ones that have to be regulated and monitored and have all the burden placed upon us because we're going to do something we shouldn't do or whatever. And they're the ones who, of course, are smarter than the rest. That's why I say being a leftist requires an incredible amount of arrogance. They believe not only do they know well for themselves, they know better for you and for me than they think that we do. And that includes whether or not we can fly privately. And Bernie says he can, because he can't be forced to wait out there at Reagan National Airport with a bunch of scrubs, serfs out there. He can't be asked to do that. Can you imagine some of these airports where they are? I mean, they might be in places like Indianapolis, my home city. I mean, he might have to fly to even a smaller place than that. He might have to fly into Evansville, another city in southern Indiana, Kansas City. My goodness, Bernie can't be. Look, he'll be on the stage in Kansas City, but don't bother him with the airport. He's got places to be. To me, this is a case study into how these people think. And he doesn't even for a second seem to grasp just how ironic his statement is. The level of the double standard that is there, the self-righteousness, the hypocritical nature of it. It is a remarkable thing to behold. But that's what they think, my friends. That's all I want to say about Bernie, the lovers of big government, flying private. But Bernie defends himself to Brett Baer, which we played that soundbite last segment. Friends, we have final chance here. Final chance to become a lifetime member of the Inner Circle. That is coming to an end. This is our membership program here at the Todd Huff Show. If you want to be involved in things behind the scenes, get exclusive content, behind the scenes updates, participate in other things that we're doing, content-wise, program-wise. If you want to be a part of that, this isn't for everyone, I understand, but it might be for you, my friends. If you're interested in that, $99 lifetime membership, that is going away. That's a lifetime membership offer. You'll be in forever, the Inner Circle. All you have to do is sign up before that membership offer ends by visiting toddhuffshow.com/join. Again, that's toddhuffshow.com/join to secure your spot today and to learn more information as well. So toddhuffshow.com/join is how you can do that. All right, so a couple minutes left here in this segment. We talked about the oligarchy and Bernie Sanders. You know what I want to do? I've got this on my list too. This is actually going to work out perfectly because I am I don't have time with a couple minutes to really start something new. We'll do that on the other side of the break. I want to talk here really briefly, Indiana Pacers tonight. You know, we talked about the Pacers. We talked a little bit about sports on here in the past couple days with Tyrese Halliburton, the Indiana Pacers, all that stuff. Tyrese being voted the most overrated player in the NBA by players, anonymous players, who now might be wishing they could take their votes back, or some people doubling and tripling down on that, I'm sure, as well, because Tyrese doesn't do it the way that some people do it. He's not as flashy, doesn't do it with fancy dunks. He does it by passing the ball, by being a team player, and by hitting some critical shots. They have Game 3 tonight against the Cavs. I am fired up for this. I love this. We've watched, my kids and I have watched almost every game this season. There's been a couple that we've missed. But we've watched the vast majority of these basketball games, and the Pacers are playing better than they have all season. I am excited about this. The Pacers are on the doorstep of being in the Eastern Conference Finals. Again, they've got to win 2 more. Tonight's a big one. You go up 3-0 on the Cavs. It's going to be here at the Fieldhouse, Game 3. I'm going to watch it, and I hope, again, to see another Pacers victory. So I'm looking forward to that. Game 4 is on, I want to say Sunday. So when we come back on Monday, it's quite possible. I mean, we could have everything from a tied series. I hope that's not the case. Or the Pacers, up to the Pacers sweeping the Cavs. And I could be doing a celebratory little segment on Monday, which I would like to do. So, go Pacers. Go Halliburton, Turner, Siakam, Nesmith, Nembhard, who's one of my favorites on the Pacers as well. Anyway, hope it's a successful night for the Pacers to get Game 3 and go up 3-0. So, I've got to take a break, my friends. Sit tight. You are listening here to Conservative, Not Bitter Talk. I'm your host, Todd Huff. Back in just a minute. All right, so you might want predictions. You might want predictions from me about the Pacers Cavs. I have a hard time thinking the Pacers are going to sweep this team, although I do think it's possible. The Pacers are playing that well. The Cavs get a couple players back tonight, supposedly. Game 3, Darius Garland's coming back. Evan Mobley's coming back. There's another player, too, that's been out. I'm drawing a blank. But regardless, they've got people coming back. It could be a different game. I'm thinking it'll be 3-1 after the weekend. I hope not. I hope it's 4-0. I hope it's 4-0. I don't know. Is it the odds are better? I don't know. Is it the odds better if the Pacers come out of here even than they do being up 3-1 or sweeping the series? I don't know. We'll see. But I think we'll have game 5 at least back in Cleveland, but hopefully not. All right. That's all I'll say about that. Now, what I want to get to next here, this is Biden on with the ladies of The View. This is where Biden belongs. By the way, I'm okay with Biden now. Now, he's certainly, I think that he should be held to account for whatever shenanigans that might have been going on in the Oval Office. His administration should be. Things like this auto pen, and now that's not necessarily Biden's fault. In fact, Biden might not have known a diddly darn thing about that. But that is something that if someone was just running roughshod over there and doing whatever they wanted, there should be consequences for that. I don't want people to pay political penalties because they're in the party that lost. But if folks are doing things when they're in power and we find out about it, they should be held accountable. I don't know what's so confusing or controversial about that, but now that he's out of power, well, and that also includes, by the way, anything that may have happened regarding the evidence that was on the laptop, pay to play, and all this sort of stuff, which I think that there's a whole lot of smoke there. But be that as it may, he's out of office now, and it's a lot easier for me to deal with Joseph Robinette bribery now that he's out of office versus he or the person controlling the auto pen ruining the lives of Americans on a regular basis. So he's on with the ladies of the View. He's on with the ladies of the View, and he's harmless now, basically, because he doesn't have any political power. But he's still out here peddling some crazy ideas, beliefs, and so forth. But he was asked by one of the ladies of The View if he thought he would have beaten President Trump in the election this past November in 2024 if he had stayed in the race, and this is how that exchange went
Knowing
down.
what you know now, do you think you would have beat him?
Yeah, he still got 7 million fewer votes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't show up. Number one.
You didn't show up.
Number two, they're very close in those toss-up states. It was it wasn't a slam dunk, and so look. Every time I've been on the show, which I've been fortunate to be on more than once. Thanks for having me.
Speaking to your audience.
Is that we talk, you guys don't focus on as much, and I think it's good on polling numbers, but let me put it this way. He's had the worst 100 days any president's ever had.
Yeah, that's a fact.
That's a fact. What do you mean that's a fact?
And I would not say honesty's been a strong point.
Oh, my goodness. That's what he had to say about that. So he thinks, doing a little trash talk, a version of trash talking that Biden can do between his uhs and stumbles and forgetting what he's saying. And listen, I do not take pleasure. I don't. I know. Listen, I mean, I have fun with this insofar as I think it's fair game, but it is sad what they've allowed to happen, how they've allowed his condition and health to be taken advantage of. It's sad. I think it's atrocious what they've allowed to happen to this guy. But he's still out there saying, look, I would have beaten Trump. Trump still didn't get 81 million votes, basically, is what he's saying. He still had, what did Trump have? 74 million, 75 million, something like that. Biden had 81 million in 2020. That's what the tallies show. That's what the totals show. Where did those people go? He's saying people didn't come out for Trump. Where'd these 81 million people go? I mean, some of them voted for Kamala, no doubt. But it was 6 or 7 million people. They were short of that because Trump won the popular vote. I don't know Kamala's final tally, but There's 6, 7, 8 million people less than what Biden got. Where did those folks go? Biden's out here saying confidently that he would have beaten Trump because Trump's supporters didn't come out, at least not enough to eclipse the 81 million. Where did those people go? That's a fair question that's never been addressed. They just ignore that. Where did these people go? Is there reason to believe that they didn't want to vote on a more consequential election where the claims were more bold that Trump was Hitler? Did they want to sit that out? And what was the reason and rationale for sitting out 2024 and voting in 2020? Was only Biden the one who was able to save us from the dictator Trump? Could Kamala not have saved us? If Biden would have won, why didn't the strategists and the Democrat Party see that and prevent his dropping out? It's delusional, but hey, so is everything else the guy says. I gotta go. Have a great day. SDG.